Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest talk in today's program of Thrift Unlimited digital online edition of Festival of Thrift. We're sorry not to be there in our usual spot at Kirkleatham this year, but we've moved online, and I'm really happy to be here to introduce our panelists shortly. And my name's Simon Preston, and I've been working with the Festival of Thrift the last 8 or 9 years now, organising various events, including talks. And I'll be chairing the event today. Just one second. And I'll be chairing the event today. I'll introduce our other speakers shortly, but I just wanted to thank the Tees Valley Nature Partnership who have supported us in our talks today. Now, the title for our talk is The Food Chain Broke. Now, how do we fix it? So that's the overarching thing we're thinking about today. But we may well stray off into different directions because we've got such an interesting group of panelists here who all have their own areas of expertise. I'm going to ask you just to quickly wave as I introduce you, just so everyone knows who's who, and then I'll hand over to you to talk a bit more about what you do. So we'll start with the person who's in my top right. That's Mary Clear. Give us a wave, Mary. There she is. Mary is chairperson of the Incredible Edible in Todmorden, well-known organisation. We also have Tessa Clarke with us. There's Tessa with the clock. Tessa is co-founder of Olio, which is the world's only neighbour-to-neighbour food sharing app. We also have Fareeha Usman. There she is. And Fareeha is the co-founder of Being Woman, which is based in Northumberland. And finally, more obviously, we have Tim Myer, a proud Teessider, he calls himself, and he's also the proud, very proud, I think, chair of Footprints in the Community, which is the umbrella organisation of the Red Carp Foodbank. So we have 28 minutes left of our talk, so we're not going to spend ages talking about ourselves, but I'm going to give each of our panellists 1 or 2 minutes just to talk a little bit about who they are and what angle they're coming at this discussion today from. Mary, would you like to start?
Yes, so I'm Mary Clear, as he said. I'm the chairperson of Incredible Edible, and we've got a radical stance in our work that we're self-sufficient and we grow food in public places so anybody can help themselves. We're really interested. So we're not wedded to permaculture or any school of growing. We're wedded to kindness, inclusion, and working out how we can help the town. So would I say the food system's broke? I'd say we're absolutely up shit creek, and we really need to throw everything and anything in it. I don't believe anyone's got the magic bullet. And I did my research this morning. I went to Morrison's and I had to walk down an aisle lined on both sides with tins of chocolate. I thought that's very interesting, given where we are and what we know. So that's me.
Thanks, Mary. That's a really good kick-off point for us. Tessa, do you want to pick up and tell us a bit about Olio?
Hey everybody. So Olio is an app that exists to tackle the problem of food waste, specifically in the home. So you might or might not know, but British households throw away £14 billion worth of perfectly good food that could have been eaten every single year. And we exist to solve that by connecting with people with their neighbours so you can give away your spare food rather than throw it away. So you just snap a photo, add your food to the app, neighbour can request it, and then they pop round and pick it up. And we've got just over 2 million people have joined us, and they have given away over 6 million portions of food.
Huge numbers, Tessa, absolutely huge numbers. As you said to me before, you work on scale here, which is really great to have someone with us who can talk from a perspective of actually big change. But I think we're also going to go on to talk about small change and the power of the individual too.
Yes.
Fareeha, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and Being Woman?
Hello everyone, my name is Fareeha and I'm the founder of Being Women. We are a very small charity based in Ashington. We are not a food charity. What we do is we educate and empower women and wider community with a focus on education and tech skills. Yes, during COVID, we have evolved into food because food was a major problem for the majority of our service users who are from Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups and with very bespoke needs needs of asylum seekers and refugees and language barriers. So we have developed an app. It is called Share Karo. It is live on Apple and Google, but it's due to be launched publicly as well. It's just 1 month the people have started using that app and or requesting the food boxes. So the app, what it does, it allows the user to select their bespoke food box and essential box, and either it is going to be delivered to them or either they can collect from the center.
Brilliant. Thanks, Fareeha. And finally, Tim. Tim, I'm sorry we're not there in Redcar with you this year. We're all spread around the country. But anyway, it's lovely to have someone there who's there on the ground. Tell us about yourself. I know you also, like Fareeha, work with food boxes, but in a different kind of way.
Yes, well, welcome everyone to Redcar, sunny Redcar, and it is actually sunny this morning, I'm pleased to say, here on the northeast coast. It's brilliant to be chatting to everybody. I'm representing Redcar Foodbank, as you mentioned this morning, and we serve the surrounding area of Redcar and Cleveland with our eight outlets who are staffed by brilliant, magnificent 140 volunteers who give up their time at those 8 outlets. And I'm speaking really as the chair of trustees for Footprints in the Community, which looks after Redcar Foodbank. As I'm sure many of you know, Foodbank provides emergency parcels for families completely free of charge that usually lasts about 3 or 4 days. And these are made up of donations entirely by the public around here in Redcar, through maybe churches, schools, supermarkets, libraries. They're put together into these family packs, and then we sort of distribute as needed. And through that method, we had 7,000 clients, unfortunately, last year. So that's basically how the system works. But we're also looking at creative ways, because we're aware there's a bigger picture, and Footprints and Redcar Foodbank have various sub-projects, you might call, that hopefully deals with budgeting that we might be able to talk about later on. So it's, yeah, in closing, I guess I'd like to say I'd be elated to be out of a role and not needed in this situation, having to sort of officiate over Foodbank. But at the moment, we feel it's crucial to the local community.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, so much. So those are the faces that we have with us. We have also some people we can't see. We have others in the room with us who are observing. So and we also have people on YouTube watching us. So anybody who has any comments or questions at any point, please do put them in the chat box or the comments box. They'll come to me and I'll ask them on your behalf. But I do have my own questions and comments. I want to start, I'm going to put a question to you, Tessa, just to begin with. Because, you know, some people say to me, well, the food chain's fine, you know, there's not a problem with it. We just have a problem with food waste and we have a problem with food poverty. One fixes the other. It's a simple 2 sides of the same coin. Is that true? Is the work that you're doing in turning food waste, sending food waste to people in need, is that pretty much all we need to get right before we can solve this problem?
In a word, no. It is dangerously simplistic to think that we can take all this food waste and take all these hungry people, match them up, and we can solve 2 problems and live happily ever after. So Olio exists to solve the problem of food waste. And unfortunately, the scale of the food that we waste couldn't be eaten by all the hungry people. There are not enough hungry people to eat all the food that we waste. So hungry people is not the solution to the food waste problem. And if you speak to people who, many of our panelists, I'm sure will agree with this, who are trying to address food poverty, whilst food waste can be a critical lifeline, it's kind of a sticking part plaster rather than addressing the root causes. And actually, you know, to address food poverty, we need things like a proper living wage. We need much improved sort of mental health services, access to education, things that are much more systemic. So in a simple word, the two are not sort of a solution to one another, but naturally kind of in practice, there's a really strong coexistence. And so we have lots of people who are using the Olio app, who are using it to access food, and they are struggling. And what they like about Olio is the fact that it's a really community-oriented solution. So there's absolutely no stigma whatsoever associated with using it, and they get to meet someone else in their neighborhood. And so it kind of really also helps build social relationships and strengthen the local community at the same time as solving the food waste problem.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Tessa. Fareeha, can I pick up that with you and your perspective? Because we were talking, some of what Tessa was saying was there about, that they're quite different problems. One being much bigger than the other, interestingly, and not necessarily the way around I would have thought it. For you, Fareeha, the problem seems to be getting the right things to the right people, because we have food waste, but it's not possibly actually what the people who need food want. Is that true? And how are you seeking to resolve that?
Yes, I think I will agree with Tessa in so many ways what she's mentioned about food waste. But yes, the people we deal with, especially in Northumberland, and because a majority of our service users, as I've mentioned, they're either asylum seekers, refugees, and are from Black, Asian, minority ethnic people. They have very bespoke needs, and to be honest, there is food poverty in these communities, but there's also stigma attached. They would not like to access help, and they would not like to talk about it more and seek advice on how to reach to food banks, though the food banks are brilliant at what they do. But what we noticed that they were very bespoke needs. People were more looking on halal food. People are more concerned about vegetables, and it is also faith related as well. There are some faiths who do not eat a certain type of food which people think that's food waste. So what we did, from the COVID, as I've most of the people, if they've visited our website before COVID, we used to offer a weekly food service. And as I said, we are not a food charity primarily, but we are a community member of Fair Share Northeast. When COVID started, we found that there was a need of people having food, not having food, not having essentials, new people coming in, new asylum seekers being dispersed, and they did not have access to food. So we looked at that, and during that time from March the 18th till today, we have delivered over 2,000 food packs, bespoke food boxes to the people. And here I would like to say that a lot of people think that everybody is going to eat what they're accessing from food banks and from charities like us, but it's not true. So a lot of food was getting wasted as well because it was not consumed properly. Most of the people needs are bags of rice, wheat, coffee and tea. They're not more likely to have yogurts because this is not somebody would actually like to have and eat. Some of them, they are coming from other countries, Simon. They really don't know what the food is like in Britain. So yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
If you'd like to.
No, it was just that, yes, you have touched on, and I think that is why I'm here today as well, that yes, while we are considering food waste and food chain, there is a huge number of people who have very bespoke needs who are being, slipped through the net as well.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
I think what we're starting to see here is some of the complexity. I think Tessa's talked about the complexity you've added to that in all sorts of ways. And I think it's very interesting to think about how well, yes, we can very much appreciate that minority groups have very specific needs, but actually we'll see those specific needs in many, many different sectors of the community, which are perhaps equally hard to reach or perhaps invisible. Tim, I'm going to come to you in a second, Mary, but Tim, do you have similar problems with your work you're doing locally in Redcar in that, can you provide the food to people who need it that they want?
Yes, I mean, that's a very, very good point and worth exploring, I think. I mean, what we try to do is make sure we have, say, vegetarian parcels to be made up for that. Gluten-free is another big one to make sure that's sorted out. So the packages are made up of rice, pasta, flour, tuna, balance as much as we can of proteins and vitamins to make sure that the parcel is healthy. But I'll be honest, we're in the hands of those that donate. So, if chocolate biscuits are donated, we try to make sure there are treats within those packages as well, especially if it's going to a family and there's children involved. One of the big points, though, and I know some of the other panelists have mentioned it about food waste, is recently, and especially over the COVID crisis, we were having to change from drop-in centres, obviously, to home deliveries, and it was one of the positive things was the community was able to band together. We had extra volunteers to be able to sort of shift food quickly, and on the food waste side, it meant we could use the fresh vegetables that is always really, really hard for us as Foodbank, because of course it's time limited, it's time sensitive. You can't have it sitting around in a warehouse for a week, a load of broccoli or celery. You have to really shift it that day. So we worked in conjunction with the supermarkets and other outlets to be able to take, say, bread, for example, off their hands that same day when they were about to, sort of, it was coming to the end day of it, take it off, immediately sorted into family style packages and get it out there. So that worked really well. And I hear what everyone's saying. It is a big problem nationally. Trussell Trust, obviously, with the overall organisation, are always campaigning on the national stage to actually deal with these issues that we've been talking about. Mm-hmm. On the ground floor, I guess we see a hungry family. We put, you know, something in the place to deal with that crisis at that time. I hope that's sort of touched on what you were speaking about.
Thank you. To Mary, there'll be all sorts you want to talk about here. I know Incredible Edible, Toblerone, you described it as what did you say, an innovation, that an idea that rooted across the world, and it very much is. You know, it's something that I've been aware of for many, many, many years. And you will have a huge amount of experience of activism and what can be done at a local level, and of being very connected to the people around you and their needs. What are your views on the things we've been discussing here, related specifically to this kind of food poverty, food waste thing? Is that something that the local activism that you know have been the face of can influence?
Well, we've set up a fantastic scheme here, a freegan box scheme, so we're getting food that's designed for landfill, out of date food. And it's you have to order it, you have to pay for it, and it's delivered to a pub and people come and take it. But many people make the standing order, and the deal is that if you don't pick up your box by 6 o'clock, that's then distributed to other people. And I just want to, Tessa's point, the disconnect between, are they the same thing, food waste and the basic need? That's a political business, but food waste is the most genius way of waking us up. As a race, we've sleepwalked into government guidelines. We forgot to use our mouth and our nose to smell if anything's rotten or bad. Food itself has become mystified in scientific jargon, often lies. So people using food waste are amazed. Wow, I'm legally allowed to eat this product with a date on it that was a couple of months ago. And when we see the quality of the fruit and vegetables that are delivered to us, it really wakes people up to, my God, this is happening in our country, these millions of tons. So a culture change about who's in control of food, how we eat it, and what choices we make.
Yeah,
we're definitely seeing that culture change here.
Can I just ask, this box scheme you just mentioned, Mary, the one where people can pay for, is this a new scheme?
We've had it going for about 2 years, but over COVID, our numbers have tripled, and we've also got a crop share scheme as well. So we've lots of options for people to get food in a different way. That
was the reason for my question, really. So was it pre or was it post-COVID? But it's interesting that it's taken off since. And Fareeha, a lot of the work you've done, Fareeha, is very recent too. So let's come back in a moment to talk about that and how much actually the events of the last few months have changed things. But first, I wanted to pick up on what you were saying there, Mary, about waste and how we don't trust our senses. We wrap everything in plastic so we can't sniff it, and we can't, you know, we're scared of it almost as being something that's not alive. How much of a problem has that been for you, Tessa, in terms of getting people to see food waste differently as being edible, for example? And actually, I'm going to bring in a question that came from one of our audience, just to sort of say, during COVID, has that become much worse in terms of people being more scared of food and sharing food because of COVID?
Yeah, so when Mary sort of describes that perfectly delicious food that's being thrown away, I do just want to take a moment to share with you all the scale at which this is happening. So in the UK, a third of all the food we produce gets thrown away. Half of that food waste takes place in the home. So that does actually mean that each and every one of us, we are all part of this problem. But actually, if we sort of flip it on its head, it's quite exciting because it means we can be part of that solution. And actually, we have seen a doubling of the amount of sharing that's taking place via the Olio platform during COVID. And that is just incredibly exciting for us. I think that's due to a number of reasons. So first of all, you only have to see a couple of photographs of empty supermarket shelves to be woken up out of that daydream that we're all in, to recognize, or not all of us, but too many of us are in, to recognize that food is precious. Food is our life source. And I think we've just been very dismissive of that for far too long. And also the power of community has also sort of really come to the fore during COVID. And an organization called Hubbub released some data which showed that over half of people post-COVID are now saying that they value food more, and 48% of people say that they are wasting food less. But since lockdown has eased off, sadly, the amount of food waste has started to come back up again at a household level, but it's still not yet, thankfully, at the pre-COVID levels. And I saw a question sort of in the chat about how has Olio operated during COVID? How do you make sure it's safe? And in a nutshell, we transitioned everything to be a no contact pickup. So what that means is you leave the item sort of outside a few moments before the person who's due to collect it comes to pick it up. And sort of throughout the app, you'll see all these warning signs leading you off to a page that explains in more detail how to share safely. So I think COVID has definitely been a bit of a wake-up call to the dual issues of food waste and also food poverty. I think, again, many people woke up and realized just how many of our sort of fellow brethren are hungry every single day. So I hope that we will now be galvanized more than ever before to actually solve these problems.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it where you made a big point there about saying food is precious, and then went on to talk about that. And I think in terms of going back to our headline subject, the food chain broke. In my view, that's when it broke, was when we stopped thinking of food being precious, and that happened a long time ago, sort of post-war, and when food was all about being cheap and plentiful, and flavour and so on became less important. So, and everything that's happened since has rolled on from that. So it's so interesting to hear you talk about almost, you were saying food waste starting to go back up again, but we've got a moment to seize the day. So it seems like the last 6 months has seen a big change. And I know many of you will have been working, most of your working lives, on this problem, as it were, and trying to find solutions. And suddenly, perhaps we see an opportunity. Could we talk maybe about what the opportunity is right now, what you all four of you see as being the chance that we have now to make a change and make it permanent? Tim, do you want to pick up there and start with that one?
Yes, I think you're right. The opportunity is there as people sort of reanalyze where the food chain is at the moment. And obviously we're talking about COVID, and a big change was obviously those that are housebound, those that became vulnerable and were shielding, were suddenly far more reliant on the community and the neighbours informing, sort of these people are struggling. I guess from our point of view, the why people are in that situation, I guess, is a huge myriad of reasons, including financial insecurity, jobs being lost up here in the northeast, disability. So it's really hard to sort of pinpoint it to one precise sort of reason. But either way, I'm sure you all know that the way that we have to set up a system that works within our voluntary capacity. So it's from what you're talking about, the bigger picture, and it is going to take a while. We haven't just sleepwalked into this sort of overnight about the the food chain. It's been, as my fellow panelists have said, it's been years in the making. The bigger picture is it's going to take a while to change. From our point of view, the creative ways we're trying to deal with it is to think about how can we sort of branch out from just a crisis management situation that we've had over COVID. How can we branch out from just helping that family for 3 days, but helping with, say, budgeting? So we've set up a little shop here. We call it Next Step Shop, where budgeting means that they can choose 10 items from the shelves here in Redcar from our little outlet in Queen Street. I'm blatantly sort of pushing this at the moment, because it does mean that we can use the food waste that we talk about very, very quickly that day, that same day, that instead of putting it piles and piles of sort of bread, etc., in the bin, we can shift it through this very, very cheap budgeted. It's really just a donate, a 10p, you know, in the pot. It means we can shift it to those that are hungry, and it means it's a high street presence, because I think that's something I guess we all have to accept. It's great delivering to people's doors and to have supermarket and sort of drop-in centres, but the high street presence where a lot of people are, and we found with this shop, proved a successful sort of window for moving food through the system. Okay. So I hope that isn't sort of going off topic a bit. No, it's something that we feel sort of creatively we can branch out to do, as well as, you know, going off into other areas of why people are in this situation.
Thank you, Tim. Mary, I know I don't want to sound rude, but you've been working on this for years, and you've come up with loads of great ideas, and you've launched so many different initiatives, and you've talked about it so much. You know, is now any different? You know, is it really? Is there really a new opportunity?
It's fantastic. This is the greatest opportunity of all time. In between this gap that we have now in our lives is something none of us ever could dream of. I'm absolutely optimistic. I don't know anything about figures, but I bet there's figures there to say tens of thousands, if not millions of people during lockdown had a little go at growing. That's a great thing. It doesn't matter that it's a manky tomato in a pot. What matters is connection between soil and ourselves. We need to make that connection. So that's brilliant. Job done there. Millions of people have had a little tinkle. We are all on the edge of some horrible mess. It's really galvanized people. And the other thing I've noticed, so our motto, our membership is, if you eat, you're in. Well, kindness, the kindness that's been activated during COVID is immeasurable. It's huge. And there's nothing special about Todmorden. On the contrary, every little community, anyone I speak to, they're saying everybody kind of woke up to being neighbourly. So I think that is a really, really incredible thing. And I think it is about culture change. We are what we eat. Culturally, it's all been messed up and taken from the 50s onwards, a kind of weird road. So I think we're at the beginning. So I'll just say, for example, any land owned by the council in Calderdale, if you want to grow food, you ask for an incredible license and you just are allowed to grow food on it. And more groups have come forward to plant orchards, to build big allotments. So even in a tiny town, I can see change happening. I'm very excited.
I can tell, Mary, your enthusiasm is amazing. I mean, you said they're the greatest opportunity of all time. Tessa, is it, do you think? Does Olio feel the same way?
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's going to be the greatest opportunity because it has to be. Yes. So we are on the cusp of a global food crisis for a couple of reasons. One, the global population is increasing by 2.2 billion people between now and 2050. In order to feed us all, the FAO has said that we need to increase global food production by 60%. And we have no clue how we're going to do that. No clue at all how we are going to feed our species by 2050. So that is going to absolutely focus the mind on action and make us start valuing food. The other thing that's happening already and is accelerating is the climate crisis. And so many food items that we have just taken for granted and production levels that we have taken for granted are going to start slipping away from us. So whether we like it or not, now is going to be the biggest opportunity for humanity.
Thank you, Tessa. Believe it or not, we literally have a couple of minutes left, doesn't this blow by? So Fareeha, I'm just going to give the final word to you. Keep it brief if you would. I mean, you are sort of evidence of this change. You've come into it, as you say, you don't work in food, you've come into this food sector with a great idea. So you've been up a steep learning curve in the last couple of months or a bit longer. What can we all learn from you in that learning curve? You've been going up in this very changed time.
Thank you, Simon. And I'm so much excited while listening to all of these great people, because they specifically work with food and we don't. Our focus is more on tech skills. But as you were asking, this is a great opportunity, not about looking ourselves evolving and looking at ways how we can connect with each other, because I think COVID has taught everything one thing, that it's all about there's lovely things happening. Rather than innovating new things, we should rather be working together as a collective. The way we've done, rather than we build another food bank for a specific community, the idea should be we should give a tool and be a bridge with that food bank. So it's like also an integration of the community, but also trying to recognize the brilliant work that's already been there. So I think that's what we have learned, and that's what we have seen as an opportunity, and that's why we have named our app as Share Karo, which means let's share. It's not only food, it's all about skills, it's all about bringing together and understanding each other as who we are and creating equal opportunities. That's what I would say.
Thank you, Fareeha. Again, another lovely upbeat contribution there. So I'm going to draw this part of our talk to a close and thank our four speakers for all their brilliant, fabulous contributions.